Hi guys, I'm going to try to do this again because I had a lot of trouble with my sound and this really is a learning curve for me. So this is take two and hopefully the sound turns out better than how it sounded in the first recording. So as you know, I'm doing the first chapter of this textbook, Cultivating Knowledge and Building Language by Noni K. Lasau and Julie Ross Harris. The chapter is What We Know About Reading Development Among English Learners. And it has a lot of good information and kind of segues into the chapters in this book. Okay, so this presentation has two videos embedded, and I struggle a little bit with getting the sound correct and getting those videos set up correctly. So I have to make Angela happy, have my lighting correct, have a little light on my face. Maybe I'll turn it. I don't know. Um, but we want to make sure that you guys can see me in there and see that it's me presenting. So the first thing for our presentation is uh, the next slide. Let's see. There we go. So English language learners in today's schools. Language learners in America have increased over time. Between 1980 and 2009, which is the last statistic in this book, the population of English language learners has grown from 4.7 to 11.2 million youth in America. Approximately 73% of them, the ELLs in America, speak Spanish. However, I've also seen statistics up to 85%. And the little film, I think, shows you a different number. Okay. The rest of the English learners speak 150 other languages. So who are the English language learners in our classrooms? I'll give you a moment to think about it. And I know a lot of you are paras and you could kind of refer to your experiences in classrooms. A lot of you have children, you can probably refer to those experiences, but can we always identify easily the English learners in the classroom? I know from my experience in my practicum that there were 4 kids who were English learners, and I didn't realize it. And I'll probably tell you that story a little bit later in the presentation. But the English language learners are not immigrants, so we need to stop the misconceptions. The misconception about ELs is that they are recently immigrated or that their parents are not interested in their child becoming educated because they show no interest in the educational process. But this is far from the truth. And not only this book shares this, but there's other sources that I read about that share that English language learners are not always recently immigrated children. As a matter of fact, English learners are oftentimes born in the United States. They're living in a home where another language is spoken primarily because their parents are immigrants. They live with parents who moved to the U.S. to provide a better life for their children, and that better life included a U.S. education, and they value it. So the parents also have gone through a lot of adversity to come here, and oftentimes the children who are language learners in our classrooms are children who have been exposed to English and the public school system since they were in preschool. So they also can speak and interact well with peers. And I think about that as stuff we learned in our previous class, that BICS and CALP language. They are growing up with children who speak English, and so they learn English from them. Okay. So, and I think the disconnect comes when they have to learn difficult language that is relevant to our instruction, and we call that academic language. Children are learning to read until they're in 3rd grade, and this is something we've learned in our previous classes as well, so you can make a connection there. And then after the 3rd grade, or from the 3rd grade beyond, they are reading to learn. Children who can read at a young age are oftentimes tackling code-based skills, and I'm going to define code-based skills later on in the presentation. Beyond 3rd grade, children need stronger reading-based or meaning-based skills to be successful in middle school, high school, and beyond. So what is the difference between code-based and meaning-based? And I like to compare it to what we see in all the Common Core state standards. And I think the stat is that by high school, children are reading 75% informational text. And so that's that standard RI, reading informational text. And this is where I will share a story about my practicum where I was with fifth graders. And I would think, you know, going in, fifth graders could read, but there were children who were struggling through reading. And I didn't realize it until I had to present a presentation or a lesson on reading informational text and making inferences directly from the text and referring to the text. And that's the meaning-based skills. So let's go back. Code-based skills are the skills like the alphabet, the sounds the letters make, and the sounds the blends make. So alphabets, phonics, phonetics, onset rhymes. That's the code-based skills. The meaning-based skills are the skills that they have once they've established their code-based skills. They can read more fluently and they can derive meaning from what they've read because they're not struggling through sounding out a word, for example. So that's kind of how I put it into my mind to kind of get myself on the same page with a language learner in the classroom. Okay. So have you ever listened to a beginning reader? I have. I had, I raised 3 children and I've watched them read and they all had different reading capabilities. One had a little bit more trouble than the others, but they are choppy. So if they read this sentence, have you ever listened to a beginning, and they would struggle through it. I want you to think of their prosody. I want you to think about the word prosody. And oh my gosh, what is prosody? What in the world is prosody? And here we go. Jenny's using those low frequency words, right? Prosody is right from our text. And I actually had to look it up. Did you Google it? I did. I kind of had an idea, but I really wanted the true definition. The book gives a definition, and I kind of had to build upon that. And here I am, 50 years old, and I'm deriving meaning from text, right? So there's going to be a point to this later in the presentation. Prosody is a reader's ability to use appropriate expression, tone, speech, pitch, and speed when they are reading. It means their reading is smooth and meaningful, and it reflects a connection and understanding to what they are reading. Text comprehension is very important and integral to overall literacy. And the book on page 7 has a little diagram to kind of give you a visual, and those visuals always help me about what literacy is and how it's broken down for the language learner. So let's break down literacy. It requires code-based meaning, and it requires meaning-based or code-based skills and meaning-based skills. So here's my best rendition of what they had in the book. I'm referring to page 7 of our textbook. Literacy are those 4 domains: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Again, here we are referring back to other courses where we've learned these domains, right? Some children can be strong in their literacy for speaking, for example, but their writing, reading, and listening could struggle. And so that's why we may not perceive a child as a language learner until we get down to this academic instruction. Code-based skills are the Prince concepts. So trailing from left to right, spaces between words, punctuation, the ability to hear, work, and work with spoken words, the alphabet sounds, word reading, spelling, phonics. Meaning-based skills are world concepts. They express, the world concepts are that they can take a text, they can refer to the text, they can connect it to their personal experiences or the world. They can express complex ideas, and they have comprehension and understanding of vocabulary. I'll let you look at that for a moment. And if I'm going to ask questions about this later for your questions and your tests, so make note of this. You can again refer to page 7 in your textbook, but this is kind of the gist of the entire thing, how we can support children in their code-based and meaning-based skills. and how we can support the language learner in our classroom. So another thing that I'd like to do is compare ELs to monolingual English speakers. And they showed some little chart. I have trouble reading those charts, but I'm going to try to explain it in my own words the best that I can. The statistics showed that an EL shows equivalent abilities to the monolingual student in code-based development. This means they can sound out letters, they can read from left to right, they can hear words. So as a matter of fact, sometimes ELs exceed the capabilities of monolinguals. And remember that the strength of the brain, they're working with two languages and they're constantly converting information between two languages. So they oftentimes have stronger capabilities. And ELs struggle though with the meaning-based skills. Remember, this is that comprehension part, making connections to the text. Instead of working and toiling away at words, they finally have gotten past that and they're deriving meaning from what they're reading. I can tell you, I have a repertoire of a lot of Spanish words. You can say something to me in Spanish and I will pick up, in a sentence 4 or 5 words and understand what they are. But then I'm working so hard at understanding what the sentence meant when you're speaking to me that I don't have those the skills to take meaning from the sentence as readily or as quickly. And I may have to write it out. I may have to go, oh, this word means this word means this. Let me look up this word. And then I can derive meaning from the text. This is what our children are doing when they're in EL in our classroom. So why is it important for children to build meaning-based skills in the English language? It's our job. One of our jobs is to prepare children for real world and to provide them with 21st century skills. And we've heard this over and over again in our classrooms. We need to support our children so that they can comprehend complex academic text. Now, how do we do that? If children do not comprehend complex text in academic language, how can we as educators provide this for them? And the textbook's going to go into that further. If I'm reading Bond into chapter 2 and 3 and 4 and the stuff that other people are going to present. And if I'm referring back to the class that Angela is instructing, she's talking about creating an environment that nurtures growth. So as children grow past elementary and they start their high school career, there is a gap for ELs. So while they're even with the monolinguals, as they grow older and they go into middle school and high school, the monolinguals are continuing to derive more meaning from text, whereas the ELs don't have that strength. And if we go back to that Common Core standard, can you make an inference, or can you make a connection, or can you share an opinion about the text based off of the page, the sentence, and did you derive meaning from that written word? So as educators, we must bridge that gap. Okay. Now, this is where I'm hoping the video works, and I'm hoping there's no reverberations like on my first one. But there's the link. You can look at the link later if the video doesn't work this time, because this is take 2. So for your final special thing on your worksheet, I want you to watch the video and reflect on it. I want you to share a personal connection on that worksheet. I want you to share a classroom connection. And I want you to share anything that inspired you about the video that you're going to watch. And to me, I can tell you, my personal connection is that I was inspired by people who struggled in school because they were ELs. I wasn't an EL, but I struggled for different reasons. And here they are, they've become administrators, educators, and they're making a difference in the modern classroom. My connection to our classroom is that what these teachers are saying ties into everything that we have learned so far in our educational career with Heritage. And what inspired me? Again, I'm going to go back to that personal connection. It inspired me when I watched the teachers interacting with the children and making a difference, but also that they encouraged that equity in their classroom and they encouraged children to maintain their culture. And that kind of goes hand in hand with what Angela has been teaching us. So now, so that you know, for your Panopto, I have to escape. I have to move my PowerPoint over. I have to make sure that I am capturing the main screen. Okay, so I'm going to main screen capture. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint, make it big, and play the video. So I should be able to toggle and look and see that it's picking up the sound. I'm going to toggle.
I came to America when I was 3 years
Then
old.
I'm going to go back to
I came in kindergarten. I didn't know any English.
I was usually placed in the back of the room, given crayons.
Myself, I felt like I didn't belong.
Basically, I was mainly on my own.
I had a hard time. I didn't know what was going on.
Even as a child, it was unfair to me. It felt like it wasn't right.
Personally, it was strange and difficult at the beginning.
I was never asked, to share what I had. I knew a lot. I mean, when I was sitting there and students were doing, writing numbers or adding and subtracting, I knew what they were doing. I just couldn't be a part of it because I didn't speak the language. And so I felt like essentially I was punished, for not speaking my first language. And it almost made my language something not to be desired.
In Vietnam, my mom didn't have any education, so she didn't know how to, teach me at home.
My parents, even though they didn't speak English, they were always very supportive of us and, helped us at home, made sure we had food and clothing, shelter, and their support.
Eventually, I was able to make new friends and started to dominate the language, and that helped me to fit in.
NEA has a program that not only addresses English language learners, but it also addresses the culture piece of it and the equity to provide the teachers access for them to be successful. Many of the youngsters are coming in with very limited
I came to America when I was 3 years old.
I came in kindergarten. I didn't know any English.
I was usually placed in the back of the room, given crayons.
Myself, I felt like I didn't belong.
Basically, I was mainly on my
I
own.
had a hard time. I didn't know what was going on.
Even as a child, it was unfair to me. It felt like it wasn't right.
Personally, it was strange and difficult at the beginning.
I was never asked, to share what I had. I knew a lot. I mean, when I was sitting there and students were doing, writing numbers or adding and subtracting, I knew what they were doing. I just couldn't be a part of it because I didn't speak the language. And so I felt like essentially I was punished, for not speaking my first language. And it almost made my language something not to be desired.
In Vietnam, my mom didn't have any education, so she didn't know how to, teach me at home.
My parents, even though they didn't speak English, they were always very supportive of us and, helped us at home, made sure we had food and clothing, shelter, and their support.
Eventually, I was able to make new friends and started to dominate the language, and that helped me to fit in.
NEA has a program that not only addresses English language learners, but it also addresses the culture piece of it and the equity to provide the teachers access for them to be successful. Many of the youngsters are coming in with very limited English speaking vocabulary and literacy skills, and the educators are reaching out for professional specific strategies that will assist them in the reading, writing, and math. Our English language learners bring a huge amount of assets, and more specifically, they bring in a wealth of what they bring in from their families, their culture, and they also help to teach our teachers, our educators, and the leadership.
When they walk into our classrooms, they're not empty vessels. You know, in the past, we used to our goal was to fill them with knowledge because we assumed they didn't have any. Today, we know better. Today, we understand that they are rich. Their experiences are valued. I think that one of the most important things about this training is to have the awareness of our English language learners and to make sure that we're meeting their learning needs, that we are aware not only of who they are, but what they need us to do for them so that they are academically successful.
ELLs or English language learners do not come to the classroom with nothing to offer. They have not only funds of knowledge, but also they come with plenty of understanding of how to work in a classroom.
ELL children bring a lot of diversity that just enriches the classroom. Everyone has their own culture and they bring their traditions to share with one another. So they do have experiences, and we can all learn from things that they, come with from whichever country they're from.
I think it's important for the teachers to know, because as a second language learner myself, I can make connections to my students. But some teachers don't speak another language, so they go to school and they learn it this way. And this probably opened up their mind to different strategies and different way to connect to their students. And what I would tell my parents during parent conference, or when they have concerns about their child, and they would tell me, oh, I don't teach them Spanish at home. I go, no, 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 no. I want you to teach them Spanish at home because I want them to make that connection.
The most meaningful thing for me that a teacher could do for a child is make them feel welcome and make them feel valued and appreciate who they are, where they come from, to, as much as possible, allow them to feel like they are an important part of your classroom, because they have a lot to contribute and they have a lot to share if you just explore a little bit and allow them to, to bring out the best in themselves.
We trained them, right? That's another way of programming. Good job. What is Ariana doing?
Making a connection. She's making a connection.
So there you go. I hope that showed up. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint and slideshow. There is a little manipulation with this program. I had a huge learning curve when it came to it. So we do have a special guest that I interviewed who would like to talk about her school experiences. And when you listen to her, we can make comparisons to what those folks said on the tape that we just watched. They are not empty vessels. They bring diversity to our classroom. They have experiences, and it's important that we value our students. So she's a little shy. She's anxious about talking with my classmates, but I told her you were all learning to be teachers and need real information from a student. So here we go. I have to escape again. I have to switch it so that you guys can hear the audio on the Panopto. So I'm going to main screen. I go back. I start my video. And you guys should be able to see it.
Interview with Moppy, take 7. I wanted to not be on camera with this interview, but I had to be involved. Otherwise, you couldn't hear my voice when I was talking to Moppy. So here we go. I'd like to introduce you guys to a student of mine. She's in 3rd grade, and her name is Moppy. Oh my goodness, I'm so scared. My name is Moppy the Mermaid. I'm in Miss Jenny's 3rd grade class, and I am a language learner. Don't be scared, Moppy. These are my classmates, all of them, and they're learning new things just like you and me. Yep. Tell my friends how you feel about learning English in the English speaking classroom. Well, as you can see, when I talk, my English sounds pretty okay. The English I use in conversation and with friends and Miss Jenny is pretty good. I can also read words pretty good too. I can understand and make the sounds that the letters make, and I can sound them out. Right now, Miss Jenny says, I am reading to learn new things. And that's where I struggle because at home, there is no English spoken in my house. I get English only practice in Miss Jenny's classroom. That's right. My English speaking friends on the playground teach me English as well. Miss Jenny says I speak with fluency and I have good decoding skills and good basic oral language. Moppy does speak with proficiency. Where'd you go, Moppy? Moppy, where are you? Moppy. My, I'm so pretty on camera. I actually was just swimming in the water. I don't like to get my hair dried out. Thanks, Miss Jenny. I do speak with proficiency, but I only speak with proficiency when I'm talking in basic language with friends and with you. I have trouble understanding school instructions. That is why I struggle answering questions or I'm afraid to raise my hand because of big confusing words. Moppy has to keep getting wet. I don't know what's going on, but she likes to swim in the water, and I understand. She's a mermaid. So yes, Moppy. There she is. You do struggle with listening comprehension skills during academic instruction. You do have code-based skills, though, that you learned when you were very young in kindergarten. But because you weren't exposed to academic languages often inside your home, it's harder for you to understand meaningful academic language. But I support you with what they call meaning-based skills. Does that confuse you, Moppy? Meaning-based skills means that I help you to understand and comprehend what you're reading. Yes, you do, Miss Jenny, and I think you do a great job helping me understand new school words. Academic words, Moppy. Yes, thank you, Miss Jenny. You are right. I need help understanding what all the confusing big academic words are. It's important to have comprehension of academic vocabulary that is spoken and written for students, especially as they move into middle school and high school. This helps with understanding what you read in school. That's academic text or informational text. Academic language is different than other languages, and we speak with friends. It's different than the language we speak with friends on the playground or our mom or dad. Every subject we learn in school has its own academic language. No, even PE, art, music. Yes, Moppy, it does. Wow, Miss Jenny, since I am an English learner, many words in school confuse me. I know, Moppy. Do you remember the story about math, my favorite subject? You wrote 2 times 4 on the board. I was so excited because I thought I knew the answer. And then you said, Moppy, Moppy, what is the product of 2 times 4? My eyes got wide and I could not speak. Oh, I had no idea how to give you the product of 2 times 4. I thought of a product as something that people buy and sell, like kelp pie at the mermaid market. I love it. But then you realize I did not understand. Then you wrote the word on a CCD chart. I did, didn't I? You remember that? Mm-hmm. You asked the whole class to help explain the definition of a product in math in multiplication. A giant light bulb went off in my head, and I screamed, 8! 8! The product of 2 times 4 is 8! I understand! That is why I like your 3rd grade class, Miss Jenny. You support us while we learn, and you make learning fun. You know, Moppy, you make teaching fun because you're a good student, and you're a good math student. Thank you, Miss Jenny. I was quiet before I came to Miss Jenny's class. Now I'm not afraid to ask questions and speak up. Hey guys, I love going to Miss Jenny's 3rd grade class. She supports me with academic learning and literacy. And what's that word, Miss Jenny? Models. She models academic language. I had fun talking to you, and I hope I helped you understand how it feels to be an EL in an English classroom. Bye. Hi, guys. So I'm sorry you had to endure that. I am not an actor, nor am I a puppeteer. I wasn't sure sometimes if it was me or Moppy talking, and we do have the same tone for our voice. But now let's go back to how we can bridge the gap. And the first thing I'd like to say is that many of our courses stress this in our classrooms. They talk about creating stations and inspiring areas for children to work, allowing for differences like fidgeters and daydreamers, and trying to connect to our students. Well, an EL is just another student in our classroom. And Angela has us designing a class, and then she wants us to keep adding on it as we learn. And if we think about what I did with this Panopto, I'm continuing to add on to it the knowledge that I get from doing the Panopto and making mistakes and you know erasing those mistakes and going back. And I love this. If I had learned as a child in a classroom like this, I probably would have done much better because failure is okay. Trying new things, working in groups, um, stations, literacy stations, support through input charts and visuals, modeling language that is big. And I say big meaning academic. So we can bridge the gap, and we call this instructional support and strategies. And we have been learning about it over and over and over again in our classes with Heritage. Now, for code-based, we still need to support that. And here there's a lady, with a picture book, kids all around, she's reading. So code-based skills do need to be supported. This is not all about meaning-based skills. So code-based skills are more easily taught. Code-based skills can be assimilated by ELs just as quickly as monolinguals. The biggest challenge is the intonation or prosody, smoothness of reading, and understanding those punctuations, the stops, the meaning of the words, so that you can have that prosody when you're reading, so you're connecting to it. Indicates to other ELs that you have mastered English, but you really haven't unless you understand how to make connections to what you're reading and hearing. Code-based skills are isolated and discrete, and they can be taught in a short period of time. So they're finite. According to the textbook, code-based skills are finite, and they're finite because there's an alphabet, 26 letters, upper and lower case. There's 44 sounds in the English language. And then we teach them these ways to master those words. Also, many of our words are derived from other languages. So
a lot of times ELs might be able to understand a word that is derived from the base of their language because it's similar. And I think about Spanish all the time that way. If there's a word that has a Latin base, I usually can understand that word readily. So that's my connection to me. Meaning-based skills are more challenging to teach. They require a larger span of knowledge. What this means is that this is a lifetime job. I am 50 years old and I am still looking stuff up, evaluating stuff, deriving meaning from what I read in my textbooks. So imagine a child. ELs are reading words but lack in sufficient knowledge for comprehension. Meaning-based skills are never mastered. I said that before with the first part. Meaning-based skills involve language comprehension, and they require that higher level of thinking. I definitely know if I were in just like our teacher said last night in class, if I were in Italy and they were teaching in Italian, I might pick up a few words here and there, but I'm really not going to derive meaning from what they're saying without some sorts of input. So that's our job, right? So developing literacy in the classroom, and I put a few pictures up here, you need to maintain strong code-based teaching. You need to model and support meaning-based teaching, and you need to create an academic learning environment. And there's a little classroom that looks like it has stations. I have no idea. Looks like there's a snake too. But the thing is this is what Angela is talking about. We need to come up with strategies that continue to support children through their literacy. Okay, in conclusion, we learned about statistics about ELs on the video and from the textbook. They're pretty close in numbers. The video may be newer, the textbook may be newer, I'm not sure, but they're pretty close. There's 150 other languages speak. Approximately 70 to 85% are Spanish speakers. Probably in our area, it's higher. You should have learned what code-based skills are. You should have learned what meaning-based skills are. And you should have learned the importance of bridging the gap and preparing children for the 21st century world. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I hope that all the sound worked. And I'd just like to thank Moppy. Here's Moppy. I'd like to thank my hair and makeup guy. His name is Chip. And I'd like to thank my sound people. Fireman Sam, he's right here. And I would like to thank my hair and makeup person, Pirate Pete. Arrgh. So I hope you had fun, and I hope that this video turned out better than the last one. It's not as long. And if you have any questions about what I did on the Panopto, you will have to thank Morgan, my technical support. So enjoy the video, answer your questions. I need to make some changes to that now that I changed the video, and I'll see you guys in class. Thank you.